FPL Game Week 11, your complete guide. Hopefully in today's video, we're going to take you through everything you need to know to make sure your team is ready for Game Week 11. It's the final week before the international break and everything was going smoothly for so many of us before Gyökeres got injured. We'll talk about best replacements for him. We'll talk about changing squad structure to a 3-5-2. We'll talk about what I'm looking to do with my team, best players to buy, who you should be benching this week with an extended benching ranking, all in your Game Week 11 complete guide. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim, and subscribe if you are new around here. First big question of the week, and I actually think it applies to quite a lot of you, is those of you still with the bench boost available. I've seen quite a lot of you sending your bench boosts in that have something like Rodon, Dubravka, maybe Reinders, and one other half-decent defender, like an Anderson as an example. That would probably be what my bench boost would look like this week. And if that was my bench and I still had it available, I would be looking to play it this week. I've actually advised both my dad and my brother with similar things like that to play their bench boosts this week. Now, part of the reason for that is as we get into the sort of winter Christmas period of FPL, there are a lot of games and there is a lot of higher chance of injury and rotation. And although you might plan that in 4 or 5 weeks' time, there is a week that looks better for your bench boost, all it takes is one injury, meaning you have to make one extra transfer that you don't want to make. And suddenly that bench boost that you could play in 4 weeks' time, it loses all its potential value because it's unlikely to look so much better. Now, if you're looking at your bench this week and it's got a player who's injured, you've got a couple of players you don't think will do that well, then yeah, you can definitely save it. But if you're 50-50 about playing your bench boost this week, chances are I would just get rid of it and play it in Game Week 11, and then you don't have to worry about it after the international break. Next up is with African Cup of Nations players, when should you stop buying them? So Game Week 17 is when we expect to lose the players going away to the African Cup of Nations. There is a small chance that we lose them in Game Week 16, and there is a small chance that they play in Game Week 17 and we lose them in Game Week 18. It's not completely set in stone which week it will be. It will also depend partly on what day of the weekend they play when Game Week 17 rolls around. It depends when their first friendly is. It depends how strict the manager is getting them up for that international duty. So it's not an exact science, but generally you should be expecting them to play in Game Week 16 and probably not play in Game Week 17. So when should you not be looking to buy them? I think Game Week 14 is definitely too late, and I think Game Week 12 is definitely fine. Game Week 13 will be okay if you have an abundance of transfers to buy a player for just a few weeks and sell them a couple of weeks later down the line. Game Week 12 after the international break is probably the last week that I think is absolutely fine in any circumstance to buy a player going away to the African Cup of Nations in Game Week 17. Game Week 13, there's a bit more of a discussion. In Game Week 14, as good as they might be, I think it is probably too late. And then moving on to Liverpool, we're going to talk so much over the international break about Liverpool. There's almost a whole video I could do talking about Liverpool, trying to pick apart which is the best team. Few people have said, Harry, with your transfer plans, are you not going to go for a Liverpool player? I am uncertain of it. I still am not convinced on any of them in particular, but I do look at the fixture run and think, yes, I want one of them in my team. Currently, I don't think I'm going to buy Mo Salah because in order to do that, it takes too much damage to my overall squad structure, or it takes selling Erling Haaland, and I'm not going to do this Haaland sale. We did it last year the other way and it worked out really well, but I don't think I'm going to be selling Haaland to buy Salah for such a short run before he goes away to the African Cup of Nations, when I still think Haaland is the best captain in pretty much every single week. I am looking at a Szoboszlai, I am looking at a Gakpo, I'm looking at Konate, I'm looking at a Virgil van Dijk. Those are probably the four that I'm looking at. Alisson could be back. Also up front, if Ekitike or Gakpo, if Ekitike or Isak, if one of them got injured and the other one looked nailed, they would definitely be added to my potential transfers. I'm not ruling out going Salah. Potential injury or something like that could allow me to do it. But I think really those are the four names in Konate, Van Dijk, Gakpo and Szoboszlai, maybe Gravenberch, that I'm really looking and considering that I can get into my squad quite easily. And this is a complete guide video, and I want to add in a little extra section where I answer a few more of your more specific questions. The first three are going to be broader things like we've just discussed, and I want to add in, it might make the video slightly longer. I apologize. My videos are definitely getting longer, and I'm doing my best to keep the team selection and the transfer plans as short as possible because I know the transfer target and the complete guide are getting to 20, 25 minutes most weeks. But the more I try and complain and say that they're getting too long and complain to myself about it, the longer I spend doing this. So let's go to the questions. Is it time to get rid of Kudu? So he's actually a doubt going into game week 11, and the upcoming fixtures are not good enough. His data is not good enough. If you want to play him potentially for one more week, then you could. But given he's a doubt, I would be looking to sell him. Sell Vortamada or hold. Now, I would only sell him if you're going to Haaland or you're going to Mateta. I don't think I'd be going sideways to Welbeck, Thiago, or even João Pedro from him. If you've got him and you can't go to one of the other two big ones in Haaland, Mateta, I would probably just hold on to him unless you want to downgrade him to a cheap forward like a Krupa Jr. or Mark Guiu and to change your squad structure. I do think that going to two forwards with Haaland, Mateta is just the most reliable. I see a lot of those midfielder picks and a lot of the sort of expensive defenders getting quite close to a lot of the other forwards that we are considering buying. And I think that moving to a two-forward structure is what I'm going to do this week. And it's probably what I would advise a lot of people doing. Now, the only negative of that is, if you've played your bench boost, you can't really do it unless you just bench boost and hope that Guiu or Krupa Jr. get you 1 point off the bench or get lucky with a return. But it also means that your bench is weaker going into this busy period. But I don't think it's too bad. Is it worth going back to João Pedro for Wolves at home, Burnley away? I think it's fine. For example, if you've got Haaland, Mateta, and you've got Gyökeres and you don't want the money in midfield, you could just do that. You could just go Gyökeres to João Pedro. But João Pedro then had no shots in the Champions League midweek again. We saw him go back to it. Now, the next couple of games are good, but he does play twice over the international break with Brazil. He is in the international squad. Chelsea away at Burnley is the early kickoff before Barcelona in the Champions League and then Arsenal the following weekend. Is it possible that João Pedro doesn't start Burnley? Yes, it's possible. Could we see a Enzo Fernandez, a Delap, a Buenanotte, a Neto, a Garnacho, a Gittins, an Estevao in the attacking positions with no João Pedro? It's possible, right? So just bear that in mind. Is it okay to double up on Man United? I personally don't want to do it. I think they're both very good picks in their own right. And when we look at midfielders to buy, they're both right up there. But I still don't think I fully trust Man United as a team to be doubling up on midfielders with them when there are a lot of other good picks. And you might look at another option like a Liverpool midfielder next week that you quite like as well. Would I sell Tarkowski this week, even if he's playing Fulham at home? I probably wouldn't unless you're downgrading him. I don't think I'd do Tarkowski to Daniel Munoz this week. I know it will look appealing, but I think waiting a week to know if you want to go for Munoz, waiting to week if you want to go to Virgil van Dijk is probably what I would recommend and take the extra transfer into the international break. I don't think Tarkowski is worth it, so I do either think you sell him this week or in the international break. I'd rather save it given the fixture this week isn't too bad. If you want to downgrade him in order to free up money to do another transfer, that I don't have a problem with that. Will Krupa Jr. keep his place in the Bournemouth team with Evanilson coming back? I don't think you can reliably say he will. He may well start in this Aston Villa fixture once again for Bournemouth because Evanilson is just coming back. But Evanilson after the international break, I do still think will come back into the Bournemouth team. I'd rather buy Mark Guiu, save the extra money, even though Krupa Jr. might get more reliable minutes off the bench. And finally, would I sell Reinders this week? And if so, to who? We're going to talk about some midfielders to buy, but there are quite a lot of options. Just to mention a few: Enzo Fernandez, Ismaila Sarr, you've got Declan Rice, you've got Minte, you could take a punt on a Paqueta, probably not, going down to a Longstaff, going down to a Xhaka, or if you've got lots of money in the bank, going up to someone like an Mbeumo or a Bruno Fernandes, or you wait a week and go to one of the Liverpool midfielders in the likes of Gakpo, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, or a cheaper option in the likes of Caicedo. All better options in my mind than Reinders, despite the fact that he came back into the team midweek and got a couple of assists in the Champions League. And then on to captaincy. So Haaland is first in my ranking, followed by Saka, Mateta, Gabriel, and then Enzo Fernandez. But that's basically any Chelsea player. In terms of where a lot of you are going, Haaland is probably the lowest we've seen him captained in quite a few weeks. But he's still at 66%. Now, it will do less damage if you go against him this week, if he does well, because less people have captained him. But also, if you do captain him and he does well, it will benefit your rank more because less people are doing it. There's then a pretty equal split between Saka, Mateta, and Gabriel. Gabriel has a 50% chance of a clean sheet. He's in the best form. Predicted points are a little bit lower. Of course, his chance of getting attacking return is a little bit lower. I don't mind Mateta at home to Brighton. He did miss a penalty on Thursday night. I don't think that changes anything about whether he's on penalties, but Palace are predicted to score the fewest goals. Chelsea actually predicted the most, which is why Enzo or João Pedro does get into the conversation. I think if I was backing against Haaland, Saka is probably the only one that I would consider, but he hasn't had a double-digit return since November last year. I still don't think this is a week to back against Haaland, but if you do want to, those are a few players to consider. If you've got a low-owned player like a Jared Bowen against Burnley, you could also consider him. But Haaland is once again on the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you want to check out other players predicted, you can check it out with the link in the description, up to 40% off and extra if you use my code FFSHarry5 at checkout. I do think Saka is the one that's going to get closest, but Haaland is predicted to score the most points. Then talking about a little bit of injury news from the press conferences on Friday. Anthony Gordon is considered a major doubt. To be honest, if you own him, I would just use it as an excuse to sell him. Kudus is touch and go, whether he's going to be available or not. Again, I would use this as a good excuse to sell him. Alderete is ruled out, continuation of the concussion protocols. Hopefully we'll be back after the international break, but he is ruled out. Iliman Ndiaye has trained. He is back available for Everton, having limped off in the 61st minute on the fixture against Sunderland on Monday night. Calvert-Lewin is a late fitness test. If you've got him and you're bench boosting, I probably wouldn't take the gamble on it because they did say they'd be extra cautious with him. Gyökeres is not in the Sweden squad. Technically, he's not been fully ruled out. And the reason for it is in the press conference, the interviewer asked Arteta about several players. I think it was Havertz, it was Madueke, it was Odegaard, it was Gyökeres, and there were a couple of others. And he said, are all of these players out? And he said, you're pretty much there. So technically, it's possible that one of those is going to be in the squad. I don't think it's going to be Gyökeres. The sort of general talk is that it's most likely to be Martinelli or Madueke who returns to the squad. But I don't think it's going to be Gyökeres. He's also not in the Sweden squad, so he looks like a sell. Semenyo has overcome the back injury, which he did sort of look like he was carrying in the game against Manchester City, but he is available. Sarr is okay. Sounds like he may only play 70, 80 minutes again. Apparently, he had a slight bit of a hamstring tightness on Wednesday, but he still started in Europe on Thursday. And Glasner said that, yeah, he had it, but for him still to start after it. He then said he's got the game on Sunday, and then he plays once over international duty. He does only play once. There is only one Senegal game scheduled at the moment, which is a little bit of a boost. I think he's absolutely fine. I wouldn't worry about him, and I do expect him to start. Lacroix, there has been a little bit of talk about his fatigue and the amount of minutes he's played. Lacroix has admitted that he is a little bit tired and has played a lot of minutes, but it doesn't sound like his rest is going to come this weekend from what Glasner has said. Looking at Liverpool, Isak should be back in the squad, so that does rule out buying Ekitike, and Alisson is expected back after the international break, which does rule out buying Mamardashvili if you're considering the cheap Liverpool backup. Moving on to best players to buy this week if you're looking to make a transfer. In goal is David Raya, but if you need a cheaper option, it's Sanchez and then it's Pope. Pope from game week 14 onwards looks like a really good option, but I do like Sanchez short term. Petrovic is my favourite of the cheaper options. Then it's Verbruggen, who did keep a clean sheet last week, having been on this list. And then it's Donnarumma. Now, the issue with Donnarumma is the fixture this week is difficult, and then it's Newcastle next week. Game week 14 onwards, the fixtures do look pretty nice for Manchester City, though, so I don't mind it if you're looking long term. And then it's Dubravka as the 4 million option that you should be going for. Into defence, Gabriel, of course, remains top. Calafiori is my favourite of the second Arsenals now. If you've got a Timber, if you've got a Saliba, you've got a Raya, I wouldn't be moving to Calafiori. He's just the cheapest, so if I was investing new now, probably would go there. One of him and Timber is going to haul very, very soon. They've both been quite unlucky. It depends whether you want the security of minutes every week in laying carpets with the likes of David Raya, or you want to paint the ceiling and go for the high heights with the attacking fullbacks who have a slight risk of being rotated in Calafiori and Timber. Shout out to you if you got the reference there from the podcast Above Average FPL, which I was on Sunday. We discussed Raya versus Timber and Calafiori in a lot of detail. Anyway, moving on, Daniel Munoz is next. I like his attacking threat, and then it's Richards. A Lacroix, a Gay are also very good picks. If you want the mid-price ones, I have no issue with that. Then it's Senesi of Bournemouth. After the fixture last week, the fixtures return and look pretty good. He's slightly more expensive than I'd maybe want to buy new now if you haven't bought already, but I still think he's a good option. And then it's the Liverpool options. From game week 12 onwards, they will be right up there competing with the Palace and the Arsenal defenders. Van Dijk first and Konate second. Into midfield, I do think Saka is worth it if you can get up to him. It's what it does for the rest of your team elsewhere. If you're going with a Bruno and you're also going with a Saka, it might impact what the rest of your squad looks like. But in isolation, Saka is the best. Then it is Bruno over Mbeumo, just because of the future transfer out of Mbeumo when he goes away to the African Cup of Nations. then it is Semenyo in next, and then it is Ismaila Sarr. Enzo Fernandez is then, and then it's Declan Rice. I've slowly lowered my expectations on Declan Rice. He's been very good, but underlying data-wise, I'm not sure he's quite as good as some of the others that we've got in here. Then in moving up front, Erling Haaland is, of course, in at number 1. If you still don't own him, he is the best one to buy. Then it's Mateta, Thiago, Welbeck, and João Pedro. Outside of that, I'm not sure I'd be buying any other forward that is worth playing every week. If you have Tamada, you can keep him, but I wouldn't be going back to him if you haven't bought him yet. So I'd just go to one of the cheaper ones. And as I said earlier on in the video, I'd go with Mark Guiu of Chelsea over Krupi Jr. because I'm not sure Krupi Jr. will keep starting. I think Evan Nilsson will come back in. So I just go with the cheapest one in Mark Guiu. And then on to benching rankings. And I have bolstered this list so much. So bear with me as we go through it all. Basically, I realized that once we get to the complete guide, a lot of you have already decided on your transfers. If you haven't, the early part of this video should hopefully answer that for you. But if you are here specifically for benching rankings, I need to do my best to include every single player who people are considering benching this week. So I do put a post out on Friday mornings on Twitter, which any reply, basically if the player gets more than one comment, they go into the benching rankings. So we've now got all 20 goalkeepers and we've got 42 outfield players. If you're looking at it, hopefully all the players you want are in there. If they're really low owned, then you have to try and fit them in with a player you think is similar. If they're not on there and they're highly owned, it's probably because I'd likely just start them regardless. So in goal, David Raya is 1, then it is Sanchez, and then it is Sells. Apologies if you think, where am I looking? I'm looking at the list because it's quite small now. I've added so many names. Pickford is next, then it's Pope, Areola, Henderson, Kelleher, Leno, Perry, Martinez, Donnarumma, Dubravka, Petrovic, Vicario, Lamens, Rolfs, Verbruggen, Mamadashvili, and Johnston of Wolves right at the bottom. In terms of attackers, if you've got Man United attackers, I don't think you'll be benching them regardless, but Bruno Fernandes is in 1, then it's João Pedro, then it's Semenyo, Waltamada is in next, Brian Mbeumo, Lucas Paqueta, Enzo Fernandez, then it is Ismaila Sarr. I do think he'll play, so I would start him just over Declan Rice. Then it's Caicedo, then it's Iliman and Dye, Danny Welbeck, Eze, Thiago, just above Phil Foden, Dango Ratara if you've got the differential Brentford midfielder, who I do quite like. Minte next, I love him as a long-term option, but he is away at Palace this week. Then it is Kudus, although he might be unavailable, so I'd probably sell him if you own him. Grealish, Dewsbury Hall, Granit Xhaka, Diouf, Tarkowski, Michael Keane, Szoboszlai, anyone who's still got Anthony of Burnley, he's in next. Richard Burns, we start to look at the defenders now. Then it is Van der Ven. I probably would play some of these defenders over the likes of Gakpo because he doesn't get defensive contribution, so you are relying purely on attacking output. Then it is Senesi. I would go Senesi over Anderson, and the most commented defender to start or bench was Richards, Senesi, Anderson. I am benching Anderson at the moment. Now, part of that might come down to if you own someone like an Iliman and Dye, which is contributing to what I'm doing with my team because I own him, so I don't really want to start a defender against an attack if I don't have to. Then it's Cavario, then you've got Virgil van Dijk, then it's Reinders. I don't think he's definitely going to start. He probably will, but I think some of the other options we've got here are better. Then it's Estev away at West Ham, Rodon, Goodmanson, Mukiele, Alderete is ruled out, then it is King, and it is Krupi Jr. at the bottom. So that is all for your complete guide. Now let's go and take a look at my team. Before we talk about potential transfers, Haaland has got the captaincy. Mateta currently has the vice captain. Iliman and Dye was yellow flagged, but we can remove that off him because it looks like he is all available. I have not ruled out playing Reinders. He did get a couple of assists midweek, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the structure that I want long term is a 3-5-2. And I don't think I want to be playing Reinders every week, in which case he has to be upgraded if I want to go for a 3-5-2. And whilst there's not many forwards I want long term, I think it makes most sense to sell Gyökeres and sell Reinders. Now, I've also been looking at some future chip strategy with my team, and I do think a free hit in game week 13 is quite likely. Manchester United take on Crystal Palace, Arsenal take on Chelsea, and Bournemouth go away to Sunderland. There are a lot of players in my team, apart from maybe Haaland, who don't have the best fixture that week. Now, I will have to gamble a little bit against Arsenal if I play the free hit that week. I'll have to take some of them out. But Haaland and Manchester City have Leeds at home in game week 13, and Liverpool go away to West Ham. So building a team with triple Manchester City and triple up on Liverpool would probably be the plan that week. So in terms of transfers this week, I do plan on going Gyökeres to Guiu. I will keep an eye on potential price changes. Gyökeres is quite close. He'll be on the border of potentially dropping tonight, depending on whether sales from this point onwards accelerate or decrease. They'll probably accelerate based on Gyökeres looking like he's ruled out. And then as a result, I will look to upgrade Reinders. I think I'm not going to go Declan Rice. So it's between Sarr, it's between Saka, and it's between Declan Rice for that spot for me. I think Declan Rice is a great pick, but I don't think he's necessarily better than a lot of the other midfielders in and around his price who just have better goal threat. Now, I know Declan Rice can get defensive contributions, but he doesn't do it reliably enough for me to definitely buy him. I'm also not sold on Saka being worth the money. 10.1 million for Saka is an awful lot to spend on a player who hasn't returned that well from open play in quite a long period of time. Now, I know someone is going to clip this and send it to me on Saturday evening after he's finally returned from open play and looks like a great pick. But that is part of the reason that I still look at Ismaila Sarr. The issue is there's that slight injury doubt to him now going into the game week, which is why rolling is a possibility for me. But I do like Sarr long term. The benefit to Sarr long term, or going Sarr in that spot, remains that if I decide next week that one of Rice or Saka is worth the money, then I can just do Iliman and die to them, because I look at some of the upcoming Everton fixtures, I look at the lack of shots he's taking and think he's going to have to go before the African Cup of Nations anyway. So if I get the Arsenal spot wrong and I need to buy one of them, I can just sell Iliman and die to them, because from next week, the fixtures don't look that great. I think I'm happy to sell him at some point. And if I end up holding on to him, I also think that's fine. So Gyökeres to Mark Guiu and Reinders to Sarr might not be the best for my team this week, because Sarr is a slight doubt. I do think he'll start, and whether I buy him or not will be a judgment call on whether I think he starts or not, because I'm not certain that Saka is worth the money. Not sure Rice is the best at his price or worth one of the triple Arsenal spots that I might want. But also Sarr now has that slight bit of an injury doubt to him. But at least Sarr leaves me the door open to go to Saka or Declan Rice in place of Iliman Ndiaye or even Enzo Fernandez next week if I want to, and Arsenal still look really good, and going forward they look really good. If not, and I go, because if I go Saka, I then can't go to Virgil van Dijk, or I can't do a big upgrade in my defence, because the Saka transfer only leaves me 0.4 million in the bank. And I would love to go Richards to Munoz. I'd love even to go Richards to Lacroix or Gueye. And now the reason for that is I think Richards is a great pick, but Richards is always the lowest scoring of them. There's always a Palace defender who outscores him. Whether it's Munoz with attacking threat, whether it's Gueye or Lacroix with their attacking returns and their DEFCON being slightly better, it seems, than Richards and their bonus point potential. Richards is fantastic at 4.5 million, but he's never the Palace defender that is changing ranks every week. I basically have him to cover the Palace defense, whereas some of the others have much better explosive potential. So I would love to upgrade him with a spare luxury transfer to one of the others, or upgrade Anderson or Rodon to Virgil van Dijk. And if I go Saka this week, I lock myself out of all of those things. And as much as I like Saka as a pick, I'm not sure it's worth locking myself out of all of those potential future transfers, which I know I have an eye on doing. So as a result, I still think that Ismaila Sarr is the most likely player that I buy. And I just hope that he starts and hope he does something against Brighton. I will keep an eye on price changes tonight. We will discuss it all on the deadline stream tomorrow. Sorry I can't be more conclusive with what my plans are. I haven't fully decided. If only Sarr was fully available, 100%, if he was fine, I think that's where I'd go. It's just the slight minutes risk that is putting me off going there. And that is all for the Game Week 11 complete guide. We've done benching rankings. We've done players to buy. We've answered the key questions of the week. We've answered your specific questions for this game week. Hopefully everything has been covered. If it hasn't, drop a few in the comment section on this video, and I'll do my best to reply to the first ones left on this video. If not, please bring them to the deadline stream. Of course, 2 hours before the deadline, we will be there 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. UK time, the 2 hours in the build up to the deadline. It has already been scheduled, so click the link above or head over to my channel, find the stream and click notify for a reminder when that goes live. Of course, I've got a couple of transfers that it looks like I need to make. We'll be discussing that, discussing your team, answering all of your questions. Thank you all for joining. 2,000 likes to the end. Subscribe if you are new, and I'll be back again very soon.